You're listening to Fusion Patrol, a listener-supported podcast. Each week, we take a single episode of a science fiction TV series, movie, or audio and overanalyze it to within an inch of its life. Welcome to the discussion. Hello and welcome to another episode of Fusion Patrol. I'm Eugene.
And I am Kenneth.
And tonight we are looking at the 10th episode of the first season of The Invaders, the episode entitled The Innocent. And we're going to come back to that title later on, so don't let me forget that.
Right.
Episode synopsis. Prologue. At Klenman Air Force Base, Captain Ross is searching for an important sighting file that he needs for the Peterson Committee. The entire cabinet is empty, and his loyal and helpful aide, Sergeant Rodell, who is in charge of the files, is of no help. He sends the sergeant to another room to see if they're elsewhere. An MP enters the room, insisting Ross accompany him immediately, at gunpoint. Ross manages to shoot him and watches him burn up as he dies. Act 1. David Vincent is in Lobsterport, Maine, seeking a man named Nate Greeley. Greeley, the town drunk, reportedly saw aliens, a UFO, and managed to get hold of one of the killing discs. But now he has gone into hiding. Vincent knows he'll finally have proof if he can find the disc. He is approached by an Air Force officer and subpoenaed to be in Washington on the order of Captain Ross. He goes to Washington and meets with Ross. It becomes clear that Ross has seen an invader die. He wants Vincent to testify before the Peterson Committee, being held on Monday. Vincent agrees to testify, but insists on going back to Maine and trying to find that disc. Invaders approach Greeley's wife by pretending to be something even more nefarious: lawyers. They claim they must find her husband soon because he has come into a big inheritance. The story doesn't ring true with her, and she sends them away. When Vincent arrives and can prove he's working with the Air Force, she arranges a meeting with her husband. Vincent convinces Greeley to give him the disc, and they agree to meet after dark, and Greeley will take Vincent to the disc's hiding place. Later, the invaders return to Greeley's boat and grab their young son. They exert a new kind of pressure on Mrs. Greeley. Act 2. She goes to her husband, telling him of the threat to their and their son's lives. If he turns over the disc and Vincent, they'll let him go. That night he meets Vincent, and the invaders drug him and take him captive. He comes to inside the house of Magnus. Magnus is all nice to him. He admits they've made blunders. They saw an inferior culture, and like so many Earth cultures in the past, they made blunders of terror, violence, and killing. Now they have new orders, and they'll demonstrate what that means to Vincent. They take him aboard one of their ships and make a short hop to California. By way of the moon, I think. I don't know. Vincent passes out on the way, but when he awakes, they are in San Margarita, the planned community development that Vincent was designing before his life was upended by the invaders. Act 3. They've done wonders implementing his dream, and even his old friend Billy Stearns is there working with the aliens and cured of his lame leg. He's an engineer, and he's excited at the material science the invaders have. Vincent meets with his old girlfriend, and they go for a ride in the country. But then the nagging issues start popping up. Vincent never left the ship and is being brainwashed. He manages to awaken, and they take him back to Magnus's house. Act 4. Under threat of killing Greeley, his wife and son, Vincent is coerced to call Captain Ross and tell him he was deluded and he won't testify. Suspicious, but not suspicious enough, Ross just gets angry at Vincent. The invaders are concerned about the Peterson Committee, but now that they've discredited Vincent, they liquor him up and put him and the unconscious Greeley behind the wheel of a car on one of Maine's notoriously steep and winding desert mountain roads. Mostly by luck, they survive. Epilogue. Without the star witness, the Peterson Committee went nowhere, and Ross is made to look like a fool. He wants nothing more to do with Vincent or Greeley, and he sends them away. Vincent warns him that he saw Sergeant Rodell on the spacecraft, and while Ross dismisses it, after the men leave, Ross starts a new background check on Rodell. The end. The Innocent. Why the heck has it got that name?
I have no idea. I'm not sure if it's singular or plural even.
Well, it'd be the innocence. This is
Ugh.
plural, right? I think it's the boy. I think maybe it's the boy, little
But
Nady.
he's Natty was such a minor character, though.
But he was the only innocent in this episode.
Yeah, it
And they
makes
were threatening him. I mean,
yes.
yeah. Now I'll put this to you two ways, because I'm going to take a wild stab. I already know where we're going on this, but I know you love to write down the names of the writers. So who were the writers on this story?
The writers. Well, we have one writer, and we have 3 people on the story by credit.
Right.
And the writer is John W. Block.
Okay.
But
And the 3
that
people?
that tells only part of the story. And he shares 1/3 of the story credit. And Bernard Rothman has another third of the story by credit, and the notorious Norman Klenman has the remaining third of the story by credit.
And we'll talk about Klenman here in a little bit, but I just want to say that usually when you see 3 names, you get a hot mess of a story.
I think we have 2 stories here.
Or 3. There's the drunk, there's the Peterson Committee, and then there's the take me out to the fantasy land.
It's true, yeah. Well, I folded the
Maybe that's why there's 3
fantasy.
names.
I folded the fantasy land into the military story, and all the other just the Greeley family is the other one.
But it's 3 major conceptual ideas,
Yes.
right? It's the capturing and coercing the innocent, if you will, of forcing Vincent into doing what they want. Otherwise, they'll kill somebody who is innocent. So I kind of feel like the high concept thing with the fantasy land just feels like an idea somebody had, and they go, where can we stick that in? I don't know. Wait, let's stick it in here and give that person story credit. I honestly don't know, because it's incoherent, in my opinion. But maybe you thought this story was fantastic.
It raised more questions than it answered.
Aye.
Okay. For example, I was paying very close attention on the first watch through. It took me an hour and a half, if not longer, to watch it the first time through, because I kept pausing it and taking notes.
Oh, I keep pausing for snacks, but yeah, okay. Yeah, all right, taking notes.
And so it takes up to 2 hours for me to watch each of these, to watch an hour episode the first time around.
I just want to say, hold on for a second, listeners. If you at all doubt the dedication and the blood, sweat, and tears we put in, there is it right there.
And then I watch
2 hours for an episode. And again.
And then I watch it again a week later. And this one came with a commentary track. So I watched the damn thing 3 times.
Oh, I forgot to watch the commentary track.
Okay.
I meant to. Who was doing the commentary?
That was Mr. Cohen.
The
creator.
The creator of the series, who had basically nothing to do with the series. Yeah, okay.
But he said this was his favorite episode. And he made
I'm glad he had nothing to do with the series.
Okay. He made other comments, which I may interject when they become relevant to the question. But here's the first big question that jumped out in my mind. It's from early in the episode, when David Vincent is in the Air Force officer's office, Captain Ross's office, and Faye turns away and he looks out the window and he talks about
I know where we're going.
Everything he's given up, his life, his girl, his business, and his
dream
plans. And I'm thinking, his girl? Now, when was the last? I don't remember this from the pilot.
Nope.
No, I don't remember this from any previous episode.
The only thing he gave up was his business, in as far as the buying gun. He didn't really give it up. I mean, his partner died, so for all we know, he just, maybe he still owns it. Maybe he sold it out, and that's how he's independent. Yeah, it is telegraphing. It's like, oh well, we've never heard about the girlfriend. Bet we're gonna see her. Oh well, we've never heard of this planned development. Bet we're gonna see it. Oh well. It's like it is signposting it the worst possible way. I didn't care for that.
By the way, did you notice who played Captain Ross?
Yeah, it's Dabney Coleman, isn't it?
Dabney Coleman with hair.
Before he was kind of a goofy looking weird guy.
Yes.
I've always thought Dabney Coleman was just he's like a character actor because you could never give him a real part. You always give him like a sidekick part because he's just kind of a weird looking guy. But here, he looks quite normal.
He does.
It's like, oh, yeah, all right. I could believe that. I could believe him in the military. Older Dabney Coleman, I could believe as being the wacky supply sergeant that works at the Air Force Base and never got beyond corporal or sergeant at most. And yeah, but here, yeah, all right, fine, yeah. Let's see. Okay, well, we'll go there. We mentioned the names, and you said the infamous Norman Klenman, and I don't think that he has the notoriety that he deserves. The notorious Norman Klenman, the largely unheard of
He deserves
Norman Klenman.
he deserves degrees of notoriety undreamt of in people's worst revenge fantasies.
I think we're the biggest and most important thing we can say about Norman Klenman is Klenman is a Canadian. Norman Klenman was apparently competent enough to write so that he could move to California where they paid better back in the 60s. And he was, and this is the part where I think we're getting to the notoriety. He was hired by the production office making The Starlost to be Harlan Ellison's assistant script editor.
Yes.
And because Ellison was overwhelmed with how bad, that's an unfair statement, overwhelmed with how inexperienced and not keyed up towards science fiction concepts, the writers that they were trying to bring in, they had to be Canadian writers due to contract and union issues. And so there was a lot of work coaching and a lot of work rewriting and a lot of work, and he just couldn't do it. And he demanded that they bring in an assistant script editor. And so they brought in Klenman. And Klenman came in, read the Bible, and went to him and said, basically, yeah, it seems complicated and I don't understand this science fiction stuff at all. But, if you're going to pay me top rates, I'll give it a go. And Klenman was in. I don't really get whether Ellison was on board with that or not, but Klenman was in. And he is the man who rewrote the Starlost pilot. This is the infamous Starlost pilot that Ellison wrote. And then they rewrote, and as in they, that means Klenman. Renamed, rewrote, changed around. There are reasons beyond Klenman's scope, such as a scab Bible that was floating around that had all sorts of wrong information in it, and just this, that, and the other. But Klenman's the man who rewrote that script, changed it from Phoenix Without Ashes to Voyage of Discovery, and I gotta tell you, that is the dullest title possibly in the history of television, except maybe The Innocent. And
I think I put it.
Voyage of Discovery aren't all voyages of discovery.
I'm going to disagree on that point. I think that if you look at some of those one-word episode titles from Star Trek Voyager, you could get some competition for dull titles.
Yeah, all right. But are they dull or just not informative? They just tell you nothing. Voyage of Discovery sounds like it has meaning, but when you think about it, it's just like, what? That just Voyage of Discovery. What? What?
It doesn't fit.
I don't know. If I know this is not the case, but if Harlan was upset about just the name change enough to take his name off of it and walk away, I could kind of understand it. Phoenix Without Ashes is not the brilliant title that he thinks it is, but it's not bad. It tells you something. You have imagery in your head immediately. It's like, oh, rising from the fire, but there's no fire, blah, blah, blah. You could wonder and have some thoughts about it, but Voyage of the Discovery is like the worst. Anyway, Norman Klenman is that guy, and that's after this. So this is pre going to Starlost and saying, I know nothing about science fiction. Norman Klenman writing for a science fiction show or storying for a science fiction show. And so, yeah, that name is a red flag. If you know the name, if you don't know the name, it goes by untouched,
I looked up Norman Klenman's IMDb credits. There's a lot of Danny Thomas and related kind of shows. But
So
here's
comedy,
one that,
basically, probably.
yes, here's one that stuck out in my mind. I thought, he wrote this one? Oh, no. He wrote a TV movie called Our Man Flint, Dead on Target. Now,
He wrote the Our Man Flint TV movie?
Yes.
Oh, my.
Oh, I saw this piece of on DVD because I bought the In Like Flint, Our Man Flint set.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a very
James
good
Coburn.
movie.
The TV one, was that Tony Franciosa, or was that the one was that Matt Helm that he did the TV version of? I can't remember off the top of my head.
And this one was, I'll check, Ray Danton as Derek Flint.
Worse. Never even heard of him.
He's
Yeah,
not
okay.
James Coburn.
He's not. He is. Yeah, he's not James Coburn.
It's an awful TV movie where this international spy who does everything has become a high-priced private detective.
That kind of rings a bell with me with regards to that Matt Helm TV series. I have this sneaky suspicion that Matt Helm became a private detective too when they went to TV. I wonder if that's a network. I could be wrong on that, folks, but there's definitely that whole, I went from secret agent, maybe I'm thinking of the Flint, but I swear it was the Matt Helm one as well. Wow. Okay. Well,
and he wrote the Derek Flint story after the Starlost.
So he's got a lot of practice and expertise at that point.
Yes, he did. Got it.
Oh.
But let's talk about something positive about this episode.
All right, and then now let's move on.
Our main guest star.
Okay. Klaatu, the man himself.
Yes.
Yeah. Michael Rennie.
Michael Rennie, who just has the gravitas and looks great in a suit and with his graying hair and has the deep voice, and you just think he played the perfect villain pretending to be kind.
They hired him for Day of the Earth Stood Still because he wasn't known really in the United States, and he has a nice bearing and a good look, and yet at the same time he is a little bit odd.
Yes.
Maybe a bit gaunt or something. You could look at him and you wouldn't look twice at him if you walked down the street. But if somebody told you he was an alien, you'd look at him and you'd go, yeah, maybe his proportions are slightly wrong or something. Seen here many years older, 10 at least, from Day the Earth Stood Still.
This will be about
10,
16 years later.
So he's a little older and a little heavier, but still looking pretty severe. And he plays the part well for what the part is, which is just, another sort of, well, we'd like you to do this thing, Mr. Vincent. I'm giving you the line. And then at the end, he's like, yeah, well, we're going to kill you then. Whatever.
Yeah.
Again, it's the way the script runs this through, and let's go to that for the moment. We've talked about this before. They set it up at the beginning of the thing that if they kill David Vincent off, it's going to look way too suspicious. And not even if they make an accident and they kill Vincent off, it's going to look way too suspicious. And yet, here, he's on the verge of testifying at the Peterson Committee. He makes a highly suspicious phone call, which is suspicious enough that Captain Ross goes, are you in some kind of trouble? And Vincent, who is in some kind of trouble, doesn't respond to that. So Ross gets mad, but Ross should be thinking, no, this is, what's he going to say if he's in trouble? Yes, they're holding a gun to my head. Right? So that's very suspicious. He backs out of something that he's been crusading for years. And he says, yeah, this guy in Greeley and I just made this up for publicity. But he's never met Greeley before. And there's no evidence that Vincent has been palling around with Greeley. So why would he do that? And then if he dies drunk in a car the next day, why isn't that even more suspicious? I don't know.
And now the aliens are trying to kill him. They're putting him in drunk behind the wheel of a car. Or were they two
Yeah.
drunk people? One person, and each one's in control of the wheel at some point. And it's
Was Greeley drunk? Greeley was knocked unconscious and then had alcohol poured all over him. It had probably been hours since he'd had a drink. I'm not saying he couldn't still be
there's
drunk because he
probably
was a
still
drunk, but
probably a blood alcohol level in there somewhere.
and they didn't do blood alcohol back then. It's like they didn't just. But he was the one in theory driving, so it would have been much better if Vincent had been behind the wheel because he was clearly soused up. Yeah, and then that hill. I mean, it was an impressively narrow, nasty hill with the speed cranked up. It did look harrowing riding down it.
Yes. It did not look
Obviously,
like Maine.
California. Yeah, it doesn't look like Maine. Yeah, didn't look anything like Maine. I hate to. I hate to do one of these. Oh well, if I were in a car in that situation, here's what you do. But I remember this very well. In my when I went to high school, we used to have to take driver ed classes. It was mandatory, and I remember we had this crazy teacher. I'm not going to name him. I don't know if I can remember his name. So and he's a bit lunatic. He held our driver training classes. He insisted that our classroom be in the basement. It was the only class in the school's basements, and the school's basements were the fallout shelters, the nuke shelters. And he was there because this was the safest place in the school when the Ruskies nuked us, which, gosh, weren't our childhood memories, friend. All these kids now are just like, oh, I'm never going to be able to afford a house. When I was your age, it was the Ruskies are going to nuke us. We're all dead.
You're probably ducking and covering a lot.
Yeah. And anyway, because of he was that type of personality. He had the whole thing. I've got this plan for every situation. And he says, so you know what you do when somebody jumps in your car with a gun and hijacks you and makes you drive somewhere? Like, what you do is you smack his side of the car into a pole or something, because that's your best bet of, and it's like, well, yeah, you still might end up getting shot. But he's got a point there. There were plenty of opportunities where Vincent could have veered the car into the bank.
Yes.
Right? You don't veer the car over the side. If you can get hold of the wheel, you turn it into the dirt. You wreck the car, sure, but you don't wreck the car and go off a cliff and die. And so all the time he's going down this, there were quite a few parts where I go, just hard left, Vincent, hard left. I know you're drunk, but come on. I think that would sober me up pretty fast enough to think that. Anyway, and then you might be willing to do it because you wouldn't think of the consequences of smacking it into the wall either, right? Your inhibition would be down. You're like, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, anyway, that sequence bothers me, but they get lucky. They survive. The car still blows up because that's what cars used to do. And
even before Pintos.
That's right. Even before Pintos. That was a big, solid American job.
Yeah. Okay. I have a couple Star Trek connections.
Okay.
Because everything has to come back to the Enterprise one way or another.
Like a shuttlecraft in the rain.
Yes. Billy Stearns.
Oh, yeah. Kelso.
Yeah. Paul Carr. Yeah. Said he's and Gary Mitchell killed him remotely, as I recall.
Wire cable over the. The funny thing about Paul Carr, I always thought if you see an interview with him, he got that script for the episode, and I guess he was really keen.
Yeah,
I mean, he was. I guess that's his thing. So he's like one of those actors. You go, hey, you get a job. You can do this. You can do that. And he's like, woo, space show. I want to do the space show. And he thought he was going to get a recurring part going on because he was thrilled by it. Then they kill him in the first episode. Yeah. He was a little disappointed by that.
Yes. And Ned Greeley, William Smithers.
Oh, yeah.
I knew I'd seen
Roman
him.
Council. Roman
looked him
Council.
up.
Americus.
Maricus, formerly Captain Merrick of the Beagle.
I love the name of that ship.
Yes.
The Beagle. The Regal Beagle.
Well, obviously I call back to Darwin's ship, but anyway, so I'm getting a sense that Smithers did a good job of playing pathetic people.
Yeah. Smithers is in lots of stuff in that era. He's just another one of those jobbing character actors you'd see a lot of. Usually a little bit on the negative tally.
Yes.
Bad guy or bad guy adjacent kind of thing. Yeah. Speaking of Greeley.
Yes.
So they've tried to brainwash Vincent. We'll come back to the whole brainwashing thing. They try to brainwash Vincent. That fails. They take him in. They put him at a table and say, call Ross. Tell him you're a crank. No. Call Ross. Tell him you're a crank. No. All right. Bring Greeley in here. Greeley, talk to him. They're going to kill me and my wife and my kid if you don't call him and tell him whatever it is you want to do. No. That was the correct response. No. Greeley, they're going to kill you, your wife, and your kid anyway.
Yes, they are.
They're going to kill me. They're going to kill you. They're going to kill your wife. They're going to kill your kid. You're all dead. Period. They will not keep any promise they have ever made. They have no compunction about killing humans whatsoever. And they will put you down like dogs. No. Or, okay, let me talk to Captain Ross. Hey, Captain Ross. Yeah, this is David Vincent. The aliens have caught me in a house and they're trying to kill. Bang. Well, you might die, but you're going to die anyway.
You gave Ross something to take to the Peterson committee.
Right. The tip off. So, yeah, I don't think this is a well-written episode. I don't know that I can blame it on Klenman.
No, but this... Okay, now, and given my personality, I've never been one to go with the commonly accepted point of view, what the popular acclamation. So I have I spent my life getting beat up and bullied. Anyway, but anyhow, I can tell you that this is one of the highest rated episodes on IMDb. It has an 8.6 out of 10. And I have to wonder...
It's Michael Rennie, it's got to be.
Yes. Who's voting in these polls?
Here's the thing. It's not me.
Not me either.
Not me. I don't think I've ever voted on an IMDb poll. And I don't know. I think I'm not that far off the mark to say that this is not a good episode. It's not coherent. It does have the interesting idea. It's probably the rememberability factor, right? Do you remember the time Michael Rennie was in the episode? Do you remember the time that they made Vincent go to Leisure World and think that he'd seen his right? I mean, that has a high enough concept that instead of, do you remember the time that I'm trying to think of one of the lower ones and I can't off the top of my head, but remember the time they had that guy and they wanted him to do something? Oh yeah. Remember the time they had the business guy and they wanted him to make stuff for him and he was like, a bit of a crank? Yeah, no, I don't remember that one. I remember the one where they went to Leisure World and they showed Vincent his fantasy world. I remember the one where Klaatu was in it. And for a lot of people, remembering them will be like, oh yeah, that's a memorable one. 8 stars.
Yeah, probably. Yes.
They didn't watch it. They didn't think about it. They didn't go, oh yeah, that truly is awful. Oh, I wouldn't put it in awful, but it's, I don't know. It may be the worst one we've watched, to be fair.
Yeah. The others, I've had complaints about some other episodes, but they were more coherent.
And this one doesn't play out right either, because in the end, Vincent, is he discredited? What happens when the Air Force guy finds out that Rodell is an alien? Does he go back to Vincent and go, oh, you were right. I'm sorry. Come back. Let's do another Peterson committee. Clearly the Peterson committee was doing an investigation based on other stuff that they had
Yes.
right? Because it came up long before they even thought of the idea of calling Vincent in. So Vincent, they call him the star witness, but frankly, I don't feel like that's why the Peterson committee was convened. And so that then at the end of it to say, well, their star witness backed out, so they just went, it's like, what about whatever else you had to cause this thing to be called forth? It's just not well thought through. And I hate that. It's not well thought through. Finger goof. Did you see the finger goof?
I was paying very close of things. Finger goofs. Like I was staring at those two guys in Maine with their fingers.
Yes.
Was that the one?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, the very first scene where we see them standing there watching Vincent, they're wearing local garb, right? Pea coats
Yes,
or
they
whatever.
are.
And then one of them puts his hand up to straighten his collar, and his pinky is way in the heck stuck out there.
It is.
And he puts the collar up, and as he puts the collar up, he just folds it perfectly naturally and puts it away. Not the collar, the pinky.
The pinky, yes.
Yes, he manages to get. He doesn't get it off camera before he closes his fist normally. And you would think that if they could close their fist normally, he'd just keep his. We wouldn't have this problem. It wouldn't be obviously splayed out like that. My grandfather had a finger like that, not his pinky, and it was because of he got caught in a pulley and a rope when he was a kid and ripped around. No, he could never close it normally. You could close it, but when you closed it, it still did weird things, and that's what would happen. Finger goof. They should have got that off camera.
Well, the other invaders who have had their pinky problems should have been able to fix theirs then.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe just factory rejects, factory seconds. Make him a worker.
There's Rudell, who seems to have a perfectly normal-looking pinky.
I never actually saw his finger, but
I was the second time around.
You're looking?
I was looking at his hands. Nothing out of the ordinary. And there was, but when I went back through, there was a line that took on extra meaning. It's in Maine, quote unquote, when he is out there with the two cars and the MP, and he confronts Vincent and gives him the subpoena and says, we know where you are.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like the first time around, I just thought it was the Air Force. And now I was like, it's more than that, isn't it?
Could be. That seems like remarkably subtle writing for these guys that doesn't seem on par, but okay. I'll concede that's a possibility. Yeah.
Or maybe I'm doing what I tend to do in life, which is overthink things.
You're trying to imbue in subtlety and meaning and depth into something that may not have any subtlety, meaning, or depth. I do think it's kind of interesting that when in the prologue, when Ross is like looks in the file, I wish they hadn't used the letter P. I'm looking for that sighting. It starts with a P, I think, a postmark or whatever. And then they shouldn't have used it Peterson Committee. It should have been a different, because your brain can go to it and go, oh, he was looking for the Peterson file. But he's not looking for the Peterson file. He's looking for a sighting that just happens to also be somebody whose name starts with a P. And so he goes to their sightings file in the P's, which is big enough that they've got a whole drawer for P's. And he opens it up and all the P's are gone. There's no P left. And he looks at his sergeant and he's like, what the heck? And the sergeant's like, I don't know. He said, you're in charge of these files, dude.
Yeah.
Where are they? I don't know. And, my brain is going, invader. Yes. Invader. Clearly, invader. And he sends him out of the room and the door opens again and a different invader comes in. Okay.
Yes.
A military policeman comes in. Now, here's another thing. A military policeman comes into things, says, Captain Blinky says he wants you down there right away. Oh, well, I'll come to Captain Blinky as soon as I'm done here with this thing. It's like, no, Captain Blinky says he wants you in here right now. And he pulls a gun on him, which is an odd thing to do for, a sergeant or whatever he was, on the orders of one captain to call another captain at gunpoint. Does seem a little excessive. So I understand why Captain Ross is suspicious. Not entirely sure why Captain Ross murders him in cold blood.
And does it through the briefcase.
Through the briefcase, right. He secretly shot the man. This was not a question of, I'll pull a gun and the two of us will have a Mexican standoff. This is, I grabbed the gun and I intentionally shot first. I shot you. You're dead. He glows. He goes away. He dies. That would make me think that Ross is already far enough down this path that he knows the aliens are absolutely real and that they are a serious threat and that they will kill him.
Yes.
Otherwise, he would not have shot a fellow officer or a fellow military personnel in that way. I mean, it makes for a nice scene where he glows and falls apart, and he doesn't catch the whole thing. He just gets bits of it. I think I wrongly mentioned in the last episode, I thought we had already seen that scene where he falls down behind the cabinets and you see the glow coming out from the gun. I think I did, and that's because I was mistaking it with this episode. Okay. This is definitely the episode I was thinking about when I said that.
I am going to raise again a question I raised on the previous episode in this series. That is, how long have invaders been in the U.S. Armed Forces?
No idea. I mean, they're gonna do a background check on Rodell all the way back to his birth. But presumably, again, with the military, you can get away if you can fake good records, right? If you can fake a birth certificate and you can fake a government clearance and you can fake all this stuff, then they can put a guy in at any time. His first day in the military, he shows up at the gate. Here are my transfer papers from somewhere else, and in he comes and he goes to work. We do get the comment from Ross that this case was from before you got here.
Okay.
Right? The P case, it's, which one are you looking for? He says, it's a case before you got here. So, one that he didn't screen out and hide previously. Although apparently he knew to take all the P's out. You know what I would have done?
What?
I think I'd have looked to see if the Q's and the R's were in their file folders too. Was everything empty? Were all the files empty? Or did he just take the P's?
Yeah. Let me try all the other letters.
Yeah. Odd. Okay. Shall we talk about Leisure World?
Yes.
Or whatever they were calling it for this Santa Margarita Valley.
Yes.
Development.
Actually, it was Leisure World. It's now Laguna Beach, California. And that building, where Vincent said, it's beautiful, is still standing. It's a medical offices building. The globe itself is gone. Now, the confusing part here is a few miles...
2007, it was scrapped, yeah.
Exactly. A few miles away, in another town, there is a place called Leisure World, and it has a globe at its entrance.
I think, I'm not 100% certain, but I think, of course, this is Rossmore Leisure World. I think they're affiliated. I think the Leisure Worlds were affiliated, and that one got spun off or sold out, or all of them did, and some didn't get renamed. Or I'm not 100% certain, but I think Leisure World was a multiple developments. Just like here in Arizona, we have Sun City, and we have Sun City and Sun City West and Sun City whatever, and they're planned communities. They build one and then they move on, and they've got the same pattern. So they would put up the globe. The globes were designed to look like the 1964 and 1939 World's Fair globes, incidentally. The first time I watched this, I think I probably complained about it in writing elsewhere. For example, there's the scene where they land the flying saucer and Vincent gets out. Oh, we'll come right back to that for a second. We're going to take you for a short trip from Maine to California, and they launch
Into outer space.
way, way, way out into space. So the Earth is just receding in the distance. I don't think from a visual point of view, I don't think it looked small enough to be as far away as the moon, but it was getting there. But I guess I guess maybe that's like the polar route when you're flying from one continent, you're trying east to west. You go up and then you go down and let the Earth's rotation take it for you. That's what they're doing. They go up, the Earth rotates, they come back down, they land in California, which would work for Maine to California. Yeah, it would work. So I can think about that. Anyway, just bad. That's just the special effects guys not really paying attention. So they land in Santa Margarita Valley, and they talk about the valley and didn't have enough water and it was going to die and it was, it's fading away, and they land and they step out of the ship, and Vincent is looking at this unspoiled California desert.
Yes.
And he's like, yeah, that's Santa Margarita. All right. Yeah. And then
Turns
Rennie
around.
says, turn around and look at this. And they turn around and look, and there's the globe. There's the fountain tinkling with water. There's the car waiting. And it's like, you didn't hear that you were in front of development with cars and stuff. And like, all right, he turns around, but then they walk up to that building, and then they get a reverse shot of them in the building. And behind them are like hills and mountains and freeways going on and on and on. No spaceship, no desert, just behind Leisure World.
I know.
And my first thought was like, this is just such terrible, terrible work, frankly, craftsmanship of the episode. But I think it's intentional. And this is me knocking it up, but there's like the scene where, and I didn't go back and rewatch it afterwards, but I'm pretty sure I'm not entirely wrong. There's a scene where they go up to the building, and he says, but how could they? We couldn't have this valley because all the every engineers we ever saw said that it was physically impossible to create a dam to do this. And then he points him at the building, and there's a sign in front of it standing out there on a little plinth that says, Santa Margarita Dam Project building or something like that.
Yes.
I'm like, really convenient. In the moment that he needed that, it was there. And I don't think it was there before. I think that's part of the unreality of the dream.
It was not visible the first time, you're right.
Yeah, but it could have been behind them because they're walking up the steps, and they could be obscuring that sign. But I think it really just wasn't there. I think these things are coming into existence as they're needed for the lie.
So for example, Vincent talks about my friend Billy Stearns, and there he is.
Stearns pops up, and he's like, yeah, I'm working with them now. I mean, their material science is amazing. They could do a dam 6 miles high or whatever he said. And you're like, if they've gotten that far into this, there is no way the invaders are a secret anymore. You couldn't get the building permission if you went to let me dam up this river. Sure, you can't. Our engineers say you can't. I said, well, I can. I've got this cool new material. Well, have we tested that? Is it part of the approved material lists that we can give approvals for building a dam in the state of California? I think not. Where'd you get it from? Aliens from another world? Oh, well, go ahead then. So that doesn't work. What I do like about it is it doesn't go on very long.
Vincent figures it out pretty quickly if something's wrong.
Vincent figures it out pretty quickly. And yeah, it should have felt wrong. I think maybe there's things that should have, tipping off. There's no way they could have built this. We didn't even need for him to say, I was just here 4 months ago.
1 month ago, even.
Yeah. 5 years ago, they couldn't have built that. And it's not a question of like, oh no, we're aliens, we can do that. It's like, you couldn't have done it because people would have noticed. Right? Somebody would have said, wow, did you see these guys at Leisure World? Did they get building permits? No, they did not. They just overnight. So, he catches on with a girlfriend real quick. And Not sure what they were trying to do with that, though. Right? I mean, okay, they convince him. He's convinced. He's 100% convinced. The aliens are good. The aliens are doing great stuff. They're going to be nice to us. What's he going to call Captain Ross and say?
They're great and wonderful and don't fight them. I guess that's what Invaders are trying to get.
But do we think Captain Ross is going to buy off on that? No, Captain Ross is going to want to go out there and he's going to inspect all that stuff and decide for himself. The lid is blown. So what they were going to have to do is they were going to have to convince Vincent that they were nice. And they say, but, you're going to have to play along with us. You're going to have to call Captain Ross and tell him that you're a crackpot and, that there aren't any aliens because we aren't going to be able to do these good works for you if people know we're here. But it's like, why can't they do good works for us? Billy Spears knows.
It's a giant plot hole, and by the way, just to lighten things up a little bit, my first time I watched this episode, and the second time I watched the episode, and the third time I watched the episode, I had to hold myself back from screaming, Magnus!
Yeah, it's another, we don't get many aliens that have names. What was the last one, Mr. Nexus?
Nexus, yes, but I just made a Starlost reference for anyone unfortunate enough to watch that episode.
It's almost like somebody who worked on the Starlost, except that they hadn't, because the Starlost didn't exist. Huh. Yeah, so maybe that's how it carried through.
Maybe.
I don't know. So I guess that's all I have.
That's all I have, except for one point, which is the name of the next episode of The Invaders.
Which is?
The Ivy Curtain.
Ooh, we're going to Yale. Okay. Harvard, maybe. One of the Ivies.
Well, you'll get to Pak the Ka and Harvard Yard.
Yeah. All right. Kenneth, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
Listeners, I do hope you'll join us all again next time on Fusion Patrol. This has been Fusion Patrol. Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, we hope you'll consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com/fusionpatrol or patreon.com/fusionpatrol. For our Patreon subscribers, we're currently running a special series on Babylon 5. Come join the conversation and find other content at fusionpatrol.com. You can contact us on social media where our Fediverse address is @podcast@fusionpatrol.com or by email at feedback@fusionpatrol.com. Fight the Future by Amberwolf is our theme music. You can find more from Amberwolf at bandcamp.com. This has been a Lone Locust production.